Hey everyone, my name is Boulevard and I'm going to be bringing you the action here for the King of Runeterra tournament hosted by Riot Korea and Inven. This tournament is a 3 vs 3 best of 5 modified conquest tournament, so I wanted to explain what that means before we get into the action. Each team has brought 5 decks and each region may be used twice within their lineup. There are no bans and no restrictions on what deck may be used in any game, except that no player may play a deck that their team has already won with. Each team must play all 3 players between games 1 and 3, and then may bring back any 2 for games 4 and 5. Once a team has won with 3 of their decks, they are declared the winner of the match. If you forget this or need to see it in writing, it'll be in the description below. Now, let's get into the action.
The King of Runeterra round 1 fight. 인내하는 자 덱과 그다음에 이제 녹색 필수 필터
So on the top of your screen we have Smileguy from Team AZ on Championless Burn, and down here on the bottom we have Ghost from Team King on Endure Spiders. Generally, Endure Spiders is considered to be a little bit favored in this matchup due to the vast amount of healing that they have, and we do see a Withering Wail and Grasp in Ghost's hand. Meanwhile, on the side of Smileguy, okay, does pick up a 1-drop. That's definitely going to feel good from the Legion Saboteur. Pretty good at pushing through that early damage. And missing the 1-drop from Ghost. The Elise going to fight for the board pretty well. The Cursed Keeper doesn't look particularly enticing for him right now, but that just kind of is what it is. And I think Smileguy's going to throw down a Boom Crew here. Going for the open attack pushes through 3 damage, but unless your opponent has exactly Vile Feast, then I think it's better to kind of continue to develop the board, and any amount of healing that your opponent uses while you're still at full HP is going to feel good for you. Yep, just 4 damage pushed through, easy breezy, no problems at all here from Smileguy. Gonna get blocked out by the Elise, but it's not really an issue. The issue is that Smileguy has a slower hand with the double Static Shock, and that is not going to pair up well into the amount of healing that Ghost has. Even picks up a Vile Feast to activate his Cursed Keeper if he wants to. Turn that into the 4/4 Escaped Abomination, and I think what Smileguy ends up playing here is going to be pretty telling about how he wants to play out this game. Boom Crew Rookie is pretty telling of an open attack on the following turn. A Crimson Disciple would mean that he wants to go for a Demolitionist into Boom Crew, no need for the open attack, but we do know that because there is a Wraithcaller in Ghost's hand, not going for an open attack could prove disastrous, and it looks like he is going to set himself up for that particular play. I don't even mind necessarily blocking onto the Elise and the Spider, just getting the things off board since they are going to block your Boom Crews on the following turn. And if you are going for the open attack, then it doesn't really matter about the health of your units because you can just, you know, the undermine abilities are going to go off whether or not the Boom Crews die after the attack goes off. So if your opponent wants to use a spell, then that's fine. And if Grasp does come out to kill one of the Boom Crew rookies, then you can respond with your Disciple Curator and not really, or your Disciple and your Demolitionist rather, and not really worry about any response of your opponent because he will be tapped out. And he's actually going to take the Grasp of the Undying off the table for the next turn and just Vile Feast the Cursed Keeper. I do actually like this a lot. The Escaped Abomination is definitely the best tool that you have to actually kill one of the Boom Crew rookies. Did see a nerf to Boom Crew in patch 1.2 down to the 3 HP because it is just too resilient, needing something like a Cursed Keeper to actually take it out this early on. And I don't think this changes anything. Yeah, Smileguy's still going to go for the open attack. But this is looking really bad for Smileguy here. This is going to push Ghost down to 13, but with the amount of healing he has in hand, he's basically at 19, and more burn spells aren't going to get it done. And at this point, with the Wraithcaller, it seems like Ghost is going to have too wide of a board for Smileguy to ever really come back on. I didn't see if that was a crawling sensation or an Elise's crawling sensation, but yeah, once this Wraithcaller comes down, I think it's pretty close to GG's here. Smileguy, of course, can pick up a lot of things off the Static Shock that could change the outcome of this game, but I'm trying to think of what it could actually be. Just a slow couple of first turns, you know, being forced into these open attack plays on turn 4. It really doesn't feel good. Didn't have a strong turn 1 because the Elise, or a strong turn 2 attack rather, because the Elise did come out as a blocker. And overall, just this is a really high life total for Ghost to be on turn 4. Looks like, yeah, gonna fire off one of the Static Shocks. That makes a fair amount of sense. Might as well preserve the life total of the one rookie that you can. Push the damage onto your opponent's face. because so many units in the burn deck actually generate value outside of just being able to attack, and you know they have the burn attached to them, I do like going face with a static shock rather than worrying about this spiderling. It doesn't really matter to you how wide your opponent's board is, to a degree. Like, you do have to get in some amount of direct unit damage if you're going to win the game with burn, for the most part. It's very unlikely that we see a burn player never connect with a unit to the face and still win the game. It is possible, not so much into a Shadow Isle deck like this that we see out of Ghost, where he does have all this healing in hand, and even has the Endure Atrocity combo at this point. So if Smileguy continues to attack and can't get through the board, then we will see Ghost just fire off that Endure Atrocity. It's not very big at the moment, and I really don't think any of his units are going to be dying, so the Atrocity will actually likely come out onto this Wraithcaller or Cursed Keeper to end the game. But now we actually see Smileguy on the back foot in terms of life total. That's something that the Endure Spiders does very well, is especially this fearsome version. As long as they're running Wraithcaller, they can really pressure the opponent's life total much more quickly than Burn can. And of course, Burn doesn't have any supplemental healing. However, the Mystic Shot pickup for Smileguy is actually kind of interesting. Once we see this Demolitionist come down, yeah, Ghost is going to go down to 8 because he's valued putting things like Elise on the board rather than going for Grasp of the Undying and leaving himself open for something like that. Between the Mystic Shot, Get Excited, and Static Shot, there is a theoretical lethal on the side of Smileguy thanks to the Boom Crew ability. It's pretty unlikely to work out. I don't think we are going to see Ghost tap out of mana here. If he plays the Endure, then Smileguy actually just takes the win? Doesn't quite have the mana to make it line up. Scratch that one. Would need 9 mana to win the game this turn, only has 8, so that's pretty unlikely to happen. Of course, no attacks are going to get through because Ghost does have a slew of blockers on his side of the board. And as long as Ghost holds up 5 mana, I don't think he can lose this game. Unless we see another Get Excited off the top from Smileguy. I'm trying to think of what he can actually run out this turn in an impactful manner. Let's see if he can top deck enough burn to get it done. I know I said earlier that we do need some amount of unit damage coming through, and since Smileguy is lining up pretty close to exact lethal, it is worth noting he did get through 1 Boom Crew damage earlier in the game, and it's a little scary that that's actually all it takes in terms of unit damage getting through, and we could see him take over the game. But if I had to guess, I would say Ghost is going to be able to stabilize on this one. The Grasp of the Undying coming out. There is no Noxian Fervor in Smileguy's hand, which is generally what you have to worry about and why Ghost has been hanging on to this Grasp of the Undying for so long. And the Withering Wail can't really come out because the Crimson Disciple is on field. It would only gain him 1 life in that regard. So I think he's just going to try and go for lethal next turn, which is actually going to work out pretty well for him. Going into turn 7, Ghost will have 10 mana, which means he can fire off the Grasp and the Withering Wail. And Smileguy, due to mana constraints, is definitely going to feel like he has to throw down some amount of burn at the face here. But I definitely understand Ghost not going for the Grasp of the Undying. If that comes out onto a unit and Noxian Fervor is the response, I cannot express how bad that feels. Okay, so the Static Shock, definitely the safest and least telling card that Smileguy can play here, so I actually like this a lot. Your opponent doesn't really get Static Shocked in the face and then go, oh, okay, that means that they're trying to burn me out. It just means that they're trying to cycle through their deck and draw a card. Smileguy keeps himself on Noxian Fervor mana. And if Ghost plays this one too carefully, he might have an issue. I don't think that's necessarily possible. The Crimson Disciple definitely makes things a little awkward. I'm curious to see if Ghost is actually considering an Atrocity. Not going to be the case. So the reason that I was mentioning the Atrocity is because if you use Atrocity to kill the Crimson Disciple, it makes your Withering Wail a lot better. And you're definitely not that mad about something like Noxian Fervor coming down in response to an Atrocity as opposed to one of your life-gaining spells. Of course, that would tap Ghost off of the 10 mana that I mentioned for the next turn, which he would need to play both Wail and Grasp, so not firing off the Atrocity makes a lot of sense. The Precious Pet top deck from Smileguy, I do believe means this one's going to be all she wrote. There's only... I'm trying to see how these blockers line up, because Ghost has 2 fearsome attackers, which means nothing can block them on the side of Smileguy. Yeah, actually pulling back the Elise because he doesn't want the Disciple to to be able to take one of the damage off of that. And he actually can't go for an atrocity kill as he would die in response. He does need to be able to play at least one of these spells, and with 10 mana, atrocity would only leave him with 4. So if the disciple block does come out onto the spiderling, you can't like throw atrocity at your opponent in order to prevent the damage from coming through and win the game instead. No, it looks like Ghost, if Ghost doesn't win the game this turn, he's actually in a bit of a rough spot. I would say that the game might be over if he doesn't win this turn. I'm pretty sure it does line up the way that he wants it. Oh no, he's gonna live at 1. Alright, so Smileguy's gonna go down to 1, but with the Crimson Disciple off the board, you definitely feel better if your Ghost could even just fire off the Whale here, bait out the burn from Smileguy, and then throw the Grasp of the Undying down. And you definitely want to do it in that order for a couple of reasons. Number 1, the Legion Rearguard only has 1 HP, so it's fine to throw down the Whale first. Number 2, if the Whale is where the burn comes out in response, then, or if Noxian Fervor were to come out, for example, then Whale will still gain you the life if it doesn't kill the unit, so you definitely want Grasp to be the last thing that comes out. And yeah, we are going to see Smileguy go to 1. And yeah, Smileguy just gets to run out his hand. Definitely need to see Ghost play his spells this turn. You want Smileguy to play some mana first. Still has pretty much no read on his opponent's hand. This Get Excited has been in hand for a while, but you do have to consider if it's a Noxian Fervor. Okay, I'm pretty sure firing off the Withering Wail first means that Ghost can't lose this game. Barring... Okay, so I want to say can't lose this game, but that is a bit of an exaggeration. If Smileguy were to top deck something like Decimate into Mystic Shot, because Ghost is only going to 6 HP once all is said and done between the Whale and the Grasp. And Smileguy doesn't want to go for this burn play, but knows that, you know, you can't afford to let your opponent gain this life. Of course, them playing it proactively does mean that they have a secondary form of healing. So Smileguy, as much as we know this isn't going to work out for him, this does feel like the play that he has to make. And Ghost going to get to clear the entire board. Pulls back the Grasp of the Undying, checks the eye to make sure that he's going to die. Okay. Yeah, okay. I think he was worried about Noxian Fervor, and I'm pretty sure he decided that if Noxian Fervor was coming out, he was dying regardless. Which I don't think is actually the case, but maybe decides that Smileguy... He knew that the Precious Pet was the card that he drew this turn. Okay. Mystic Shot was step 2 of getting back into this game. Step 1 was Decimate. We're actually going to see the Atrocity come out, and this... Ooh. Yeah, Smileguy has to use the Mystic Shot here. I mean, anytime you're going to lose the game, you kind of have to make the play that is going to stop that. As bad as it feels, and as much as I don't think you can win the game from the position afterward, you do have to see what the top deck brings you. But with the attack token going over to Ghost, Decimate, going to be a little bit too late. And it's a Get Excited, which is a completely unplayable card in this scenario. It did work out for Smileguy that there were no fearsome blockers on the side of Ghost, but that's going to be game number 1 going to Team King and Ghost. Alright, for game number 2, we're going to have Jinbae on Championless Burn versus Manserin on the Karma Lux. Now, this is typically a pretty one-sided matchup. Karma Lux kind of came out of the meta as sort of an answer to Championless Burn. We do see the Health Potion in the hand of Manserin that is actually kept. Typically, these decks will even run 2 to 3 copies of Health Potion because it is just so effective in the Burn matchup. This is a deck that typically wants to just, you know, run out your opponent's life total pretty much as exactly as possible. They tend to struggle with decks that have a lot of healing, and the Eye of the Dragon going to help play into this even better for Manserin, and the Badgerberry. Yeah, this is just about as good a curve as the Karma Lux could ask for, and we don't see a great opening hand on the side of Jinbae. Running out a lot of 1-drops feels great. The problem is there's really not a lot of follow-up, and the Transfusion just doesn't feel great without Crimson Disciple to back it up. We are probably going to see a block down onto one of the Saboteurs here. The one problem that Karma Lux can have is controlling the board in the early game, so blocking with the Eye of the Dragon is going to feel really good. The Badger Bear going to feel even better to come out and be able to block out onto this Legion rearguard. However, now the Eye of the Dragon is vulnerable to removal, and another burn spell picked up for Jinbae is going to feel really bad here. So, on the side of Manserin, I think the Badger Bear seems like the most likely play. Could actually get punished if he goes for double spell to activate the Eye of the Dragon. And it looks like that is a consideration being made. There's no real reason to hold back the health. Okay, yeah. So, it looks like it's going to be Concussive Palm. I would imagine this is going to get followed up by the Health Potion. Jinbae, even considering a transfusion, I think holding something else is a little bit better. Even if you just Noxian Fervor to kill the Eye of the Dragon, at least that denies the tail of the dragon coming out. Okay, so the Noxian Fervor going to get aimed at face here, just to deny the 3-2. However, understands that this likely means that there's a health potion follow-up. It's not often that you see your opponent just randomly concussive palm something on their own turn, even though the 3-2 is valuable. Yeah, Noxian Fervor. Ooh, even going to take out the Eye of the Dragon. So that's actually really heads up from Jinbae. I think he does have the read on the health potion, and Jinbae, a little bit of bias here, but Jinbae was definitely one of my favorite players to watch during the Korean Invitational. I thought he brought a pretty cool lineup of decks and brought a really interesting playstyle along with it. So I'm very happy to see him return here in the King of Runeterra tournament. And it looks like, you know, he's going to have a rough time here in game number 1. We do see 13 life on the side of Manserin, but that's not a very stagnant life total for this Karma Lux deck. And we even see the Radiant Guardian picked up to sort of reiterate my point. And not going for the open attack does value getting down this Crimson Disciple, which I actually don't mind. We're likely to see the Badger Bear block onto the Disciple here, as it is the more threatening of the two units. And that could mean Transfusion pushes through 7 damage onto Manserin's life total. That actually is going to block the rear guard, playing around the Transfusion a bit. That's something that a lot of players can learn from. As much as you want to block the Crimson Disciple because it is the most threatening long-term unit, it makes the Transfusion play a lot worse because nobody wants to Transfusion onto the Disciple. You want to Transfusion off of the Disciple. And it looks like Jinbae's actually still considering that play just to kill the Badger Bear and push through a little bit more damage. So, the Transfusion not pushing through as much face damage, but does get this off the board. Does mean that this Radiant Guardian isn't going to be able to get its immediate tough and lifesteal value. And at 9 HP, I still feel like Manserin's not in a bad spot. We do see the Grizzled Ranger picked up now. But unless this Radiant Guardian gets off relatively soon, if Jinbae just keeps killing units as they come down, for example, could see Static Shock on the attack here, or just let this one go through first, then it's going to be a little hard for Manserin to actually come back. Does have the health potion as previously mentioned. There's not a lot of burn in Jinbae's hand, does only have 6 damage currently, but there is a lot of burn in the deck. Can't rule this one out, and it's definitely going to be a while before Manserin actually starts to proactively win the game. And we actually don't see an attack out of Manserin. Decides that they don't want to give Jinbae the opportunity to set up the board while they're low on mana. And the deny can actually be a pretty big pickup here. Might even just see this fired off here. Alright, so the deny going to be held for a later date, is going to be able to get down the Radiant Guardian this turn, and with 9 mana, Manserin actually has the option to play both in the turn, so if a scarier spell like Decimate does come down, might even play it onto this Demolitionist ability. That doesn't feel completely out of the question for me, as it does represent 4 damage. That's as much damage as Decimate. That's as much damage as a deny can deny. And yeah, it will be deny coming out onto the Demolitionist ability. Makes a lot of sense to me. With the Radiant Guardian down, the Demolitionist denied. Only 5 damage in the hand of Jinbae, and a health potion on the side of Manserin, I think means that there's no way that Jinbae can win the game next turn, but there is a cool little trick that Jinbae is likely to take advantage of, where you can line up a blocker onto the lifesteal unit and then fire off a Noxian Fervor, pushing through 3 damage at your opponent's face, but more importantly, denying the lifesteal. So, because there is a Noxian Fervor for Jinbae, he definitely doesn't feel out of the game just yet. This deny is definitely unfortunate, but not a deal breaker. And I think Jinbae's just kind of deciding if this precious pet is worth holding on to or if he wants to throw it down onto the board. It's pretty unlikely that Jinbae gets to attack anymore in this game unless he's throwing down something like a Saboteur and then proactively Noxian Fervoring it. But that Radiant Guardian basically means that combat is over for this game for Jinbae. So it looks like he's going to hold on to the precious pet in case he does top deck something like a Get Excited. Used Cask Salesman, not a bad pickup. And now Jinbae trying to figure out where he needs to line up these blockers. One of these is going to be dying to a Noxian Fervor to go at the face, but which unit? Crimson Disciple still has some long-term value that can be pushed out of it, but the Demolitionist is a little bit healthier. Personally, I think I hold back the Disciple, or throw the Disciple. Oh no, they're both dying. No, they're not both dying. You don't have to block this Badger Bear. Jinbae had a very healthy life total. Ooh, I don't like passing. That's a lot of life gained back for Manserin. And with the health potion in hand that Jinbae seemed to have had a read on earlier, it looks like he's kind of forgotten about that. When he killed the Eye of the Dragon when Manserin had 1 mana left, I kind of thought that Jinbae was thinking about the health potion and, oh, my opponent has one mana left to play one more spell and turn on this Eye of the Dragon, so I need to get this off the board now because it'll generate value next turn. And it looks like Jinbae has just kind of either forgotten this play or decided that the health potion doesn't matter. But yeah, with Manserin at basically a 16 life total, and now we're going to see the Noxian Fervor fired off anyway from one of the used casks. This is a little heartbreaking. If Jinbae had gone for the Noxian Fervor block, maybe he was worried about some form of removal, and now that Manserin is down to 1 mana, he feels a little more comfortable firing everything off. But I definitely feel like you have to take risks in this matchup, as you're not favored in it generally. There's so much healing coming out of... Sorry, there's so much healing coming out of Karma Lux that you definitely feel like you have to do this. And now the Noxian Fervor, even feeling worse since it was fired off onto a cask, this Legion Saboteur, you'd like to be able to attack with it to push through the 1 damage, and then Noxian Fervor when the Radiant Guardian goes to block so that your opponent doesn't get the lifesteal. But yeah, if Jinbae had just Noxian Fervor the face, we'd see Smileguy, or we'd see Manserin here rather at 3, which could present a potential lethal with the Saboteur and the Mystic Shot. Of course, we do know there is the health potion and a stun and a deep meditation. A lot of things from Manserin to stop this, but it is the one chance that I feel Jinbae had to actually go for lethal. This wide board really doesn't mean anything. And because the Radiant Guardian went unblocked, it's still at full HP. There's no chance that this unit is dying at any point this game. We will even see the Concussive Palm come down onto the Saboteur to prevent the 1 damage. And this one is, I believe now, in Limbo. So if you haven't heard me cast recently, Limbo is sort of this term that I like to use to indicate when the game has ended but is not over yet. Or rather, when the game is over but has not ended. So what I mean by that is there's no way that I can see Jinbae coming back into this one. I don't think there's any amount of top decks that he could draw in order to get him out of this. Because he's only at 9 life and there's the Radiant Guardian, there's a very good chance for Manserin to continue to stabilize. Nothing that Jinbae is going to be able to do about it. We even see the Lux upgrade here going to push through more damage. So while the game is over, it has not ended yet, and we're going to have a couple more minutes of the players actually playing it out. The Disciple getting taken out, going to stop any more cheese damage. This makes Demolitionists feel even worse in the future. And this is what I mean. I legitimately cannot think of any slew of draws that could come out of this burn deck in order to beat Karma Lux. And it's, as I said earlier, it's not a favored matchup. I don't think Jinbae played this one particularly well. And the full attack from Manserin wants to get that Radiant Guardian lifesteal before any slow spells can come out of Jinbae. Isn't as worried about ending the game this turn when he is just going back up to 13, undoing all of the hard work that Jinbae did with this Noxian Fervor and this used Cask Salesman. And Jinbae is actually in danger of dying if he leaves any unit on board if a final spark comes out. Yeah, and that's just going to be all she wrote here in game number 2.
약탈덱을 꺼냈네요. 네, 이제 아래쪽이 인간 젤리 선수고
Game number 3, we're going to see Human Jelly versus Frozen Winter. It looks like Team AZ has finally swapped off that championless burn after it failed to perform against both Endure Spiders and Karma Lux. And it is worth mentioning that because of this odd format coming out of this King of Runeterra tournament, something we're not used to seeing at all, deck choice actually matters a lot. After Team King, won with the Endure Spiders, it's not like they were forced to swap over to Karma Lux. They had 4 decks they could have chosen from, and Team AZ just kind of thought that they wouldn't swap to the Karma Lux and they could take a win with the Championless Burn, but didn't work out for them, and now they will be swapping off of it, as we see an immediate warning shot into Jagged Butcher out of Human Jelly. And it's not often that we see Warning Shot in the main deck. Generally, even the Pilfer decks are just going to be making it off of Yordle Grifter, but Human Jelly coming out with this Misfortune Sejuani deck with the Warning Shot in the main, fires it off in order to get that Sejuani proc down on turn 1. And now, also a little substandard, we see a couple Cithria out of Frozen Winter. I had previously thought, looking at the lineup, I thought there was no Bannerman in this turnip. I had thought that every Demacia, Ionia was going to be Karma Lux, but it looks like Team AZ has brought Bannerman. Interesting choice into this tournament. As I said, the format's really interesting, and I'm excited to see it evolve as the tournament goes on. And it looks like this is going to be some bad luck here for Team AZ in the start. Generally, getting down the Cithrias feels okay if you have the Bannerman in hand, but you want to deny the plunder, you want to deny the plunder trigger, but you also don't want to lose your entire board going into your Bannerman turn. You would like the Cithria to stick around and be able to challenge out the Butcher at a later time. Might even see the Riposte get played here. Would turn out pretty terribly because of the Make It Rain, but Human Jelly actually doing a great job in taking over the early board over Bannerman. Gotta say, absolutely love the hair out of Human Jelly. That is impressive. I like that a lot. Yeah, actually going to hold back on the Cithria. The Plunder trigger goes off. I think this game is not going to matter too much if the Sejuani comes out. Generally, it can be a little bit hard for decks to consistently trigger the Sejuani ability after she's upgraded. Of course, once Frozen Winter starts to take control of the board, it'll be a lot harder for Human Jelly to actually get off the triggers consistently. So Sejuani might end up getting stuck at 3 or 4 evolution ticks is the point that I'm trying to make. We see a Bannerman stolen from Frozen Jelly that's going to be completely useless as there's no Demacia in his deck. Doesn't have any opportunity to go ahead and try and get that off, but Grizzled Ranger, one of the best cards in the Bannerman deck, coming down on curve. You do see a second one in Frozen Winter's hand as well, on top of a Relentless Pursuit. Is a few turns off of playing both in the same turn, though, unfortunately. It looks like it will just be a pass from Human Jelly. Wants to see how this combat plays out first. Doesn't need to get the Yordle Grifter down. Make It Rain is enticing, but probably not the best play. It has opportunities to go wrong, and even if it goes right, it does take you off of any other play this turn. Meanwhile, you've got a couple of 2-mana cards that aren't doing you anything, especially this Hired Gun. I think she's gotten about as much value as you can expect her to. Wouldn't mind to see her get thrown under the Ranger here, but the Grizzled Rangers are actually going to take over the board really well for Frozen Winter. It's going to be another pass from Human Jelly. As much as Human Jelly would like to get this Yordle Grifter down, I don't think he's particularly upset if he just floats the 3 spell mana into the next turn. And overall, it looks like Frozen Winter is starting to claw his way back into this game. The hand from Human Jelly is actually pretty weak. I would assume that these Yordle Grifters are going to get their Allegiance effect off. It looks like it will just be the pass. No more additional combat phases. A little strange to me that Frozen Winter didn't attack with at least the Badger Bear or maybe even Fiora challenge onto the Black Market Merchant. Not sure what he was actually afraid of coming out of Human Jelly. Could have been Fury of the North. That's a pretty reasonable assumption, though. I don't have access to the deck lists, unfortunately, so I do not know if there is a Fury of the North in the deck. Although, generally, I believe when we see these MF Sejuani decks, the Freljord cards we see are generally Sejuani, and then it's a couple of things you could play. Ember Maiden is not out of the question in order to get consistent plunder triggers. Generally, I think I've seen Omen Hawk and Fury of the North as the most likely cards to be coming out. And even now we're going to see Misfortune come out instead of the Yordle Grifter, because it does offer up some great trades with these Jagged Butchers. And it is going to be just the Jagged Butchers going in. This Black Market Merchant going to hang back, get his value with the Grifters later. Or is he going to go in? Looks like it's being considered to throw him out there. Would surprise me a little bit, but not a lot. Yeah, I think that's an understatement, actually. That would surprise me a fair amount, and he does lock it in. Your black market merchant going to be thrown out there as well. I don't hate this. There's really not a lot that FrozenWinter could have other than Ranger's Resolve to really punish this MF, and the black market merchant potentially sets up for a better make it rain or just denies a good bannerman from FrozenWinter, who does throw out the entire flurry of blocks here, which means his bannerman is going to be extremely weak on the following turn, and he's going to lose his scout attack from the Grizzled Ranger. And this doesn't even deny the plunder effect, as the MF ability will still go off if there were any pilfered goods or additional black market merchants out of Human Jelly. Would still have the opportunity to play those, and I like the little comb action we got going down there for Human Jelly. Looking calm, cool, and collected, not worried about anything that FrozenWinter has done so far. It will be the Badger Bear pulled back. So still a decent board on the side of FrozenWinter. I like this a little bit more. Is going to have a pretty good bannerman, although his life total is really low. And there's a Sejuani off the top. That's pretty good for Human Jelly, and he looks pretty excited about that, ready to go and get this one down. Garen from FrozenWinter, not the most impactful, and honestly, I don't think we're going to see this Relentless Pursuit really get any value in this matchup. Riposte also going to have an extremely hard time with the Misfortune down there. Would have to assume that Swiftwing Lancer's on the table to take out this MF. Maybe Fiora just trades onto her herself, but I really think that getting this MF off the board is going to have to be a priority here for FrozenWinter. I don't think there's necessarily a bad play in FrozenWinter's hand. I don't necessarily love the open attack, but I think playing any of these units before combat is pretty good, and we are going to see the Sejuani punish onto the Fiora. No challenge going to be happening this turn, which means that the MF will reign supreme again, although we are finally going to have 3 spell mana to be able to play this Relentless Pursuit whenever we want. The Riposte mana is available as well if this Sejuani goes to block onto a Badger Bear, but it looks like Human Jelly is kind of sniffing it out, not taking any risks with this Sejuani, wants to keep her around. Although now he is left with 2 units he doesn't really want to attack with. If you're not going to block with the Sejuani, I would assume you're not going to attack with her either. Although she is pretty close to evolution, and since we do have 2 Yordle Grifters, that represents 2 warning shots. And the warning shot would be a great way to turn the Sejuani on consistently throughout your opponent's turns. So I do believe that this Sejuani is at least out at 3 out of 5? 3 out of 5 sounds a little correct. I don't think Human Jelly has done any damage on any of FrozenWinter's turns. 1 out of 4 on the MF, knew that one. And yeah, 3 out of 5 on the Sejuani. Sorry, everybody. It's hard to keep track of these things sometimes. But it looks like I was right. Didn't mean to hover on that one for so long. Okay. Single combat, a pretty good pickup, especially with the Riposte. It's a nice little combo. Being able to take out 2 things with really high toughness. But FrozenWinter doesn't have a great blocker for this Sejuani, at least in terms of not taking damage, and Human Jelly will be able to upgrade her next turn with the warning shot. This would be a... not... The Yordle Grifter attack singular makes a little bit of sense. It looks like Human Jelly had been playing around Riposte. He knows that Riposte and Relentless Pursuit have been in FrozenWinter's hand for quite some time now, so even though this gets cleaned up by the Badger Bear or the Garen, it looks like FrozenWinter going to play this one really safe, not put the Garen in harm's way, and it will just be the MF ability going through in order to tick up the Sejuani again. And it is worth noting that if Garen had blocked, there was a potential punish on the side of Human Jelly. Does have that Make It Rain. Could have taken out the Garen. Not guaranteed, but And I don't think we're going to see MF evolve anytime soon in this game. I generally don't like Misfortune in non-scout decks, as it does take forever for her to evolve, and it generally never happens. Although, in this deck, it does seem like Sejuani is more of the focal point. Not really worried about the MF evolution actually coming out, like you are in the scout decks. So, but it does mean that Human Jelly has had to make some questionable trades here, just for the purpose of long-term value. It's a little bit of a weird deck to play and sort of navigate. Trading off your units for perceived value is not something that happens a lot in Legends of Runeterra, but it is necessary in these plunder-type decks. And as I said, the Sejuani will be upgrading next turn thanks to the warning shot, which means this MF ability on the following turn will be able to take out, or MF rather, the MF ability will trigger the upgraded Sejuani ability, and FrozenWinter's entire board will get frostbitten, and from there, I think it's going to be pretty hard for FrozenWinter to come back into this one. It looks like we are going to fire off this single combat. Garen's going to take out Misfortune? Seems the most likely. Yeah, there we go. Without the riposte coming out as well, you know, no ability to take out the Sejuani. So this actually does get things a little bit better for FrozenWinter. That MF was really the best activator Human Jelly had for the upgraded Sejuani ability. And with 2 HP rather left on the Garen, he is just outside of the Make It Rain capabilities. It's going to be the pass from Human Jelly. FrozenWinter actually has some decent open attacks here. Okay, and Fury of the North is in the deck, so FrozenWinter playing around that one earlier makes a bit of sense. We're even going to see Fiora challenge onto the Sejuani. I'm not sure if this is just softening it up or if we are going to see the riposte. FrozenWinter doesn't have to riposte the Fiora just yet, because Human Jelly does have to do something before the attacks are actually finalized, or before the attacks go through, rather. Ah, no, see, I liked the Sejuani challenge because you know that Human Jelly has to do something, has to declare a block or play a card because otherwise he dies, and then you can just play the riposte afterward, assuming it is a fine play. Looks like this Make It Rain's being considered to try and snipe out the Badger Bear. Will be the case. This will even make the riposte a little bit more awkward if this does land onto the Garen as well. And if it hits face, doesn't hit face, okay. So he wanted to hit face to level up the Sejuani, and then the warning shot could come through to frostbite everything. It's a little bit of a weird interaction, and I'm not sure if they've cleaned up Sejuani's wording since, but it always felt to me like Sejuani says the first time I see you damage the Nexus this round, frostbite your enemies, but the first time I damaged the Nexus this round was when I actually leveled you up, but that is how Sejuani works, or at least used to. If you, I don't think it's changed, but it's been a minute since I've seen a Sejuani. If you do level her up, then the next instance of damage will actually proc her frostbite effect, even though it is not technically the first damage that you saw this turn. It's a little counterintuitive to how Lucian works, where he says, you know, the first time I see an ally die this turn, rally, but that doesn't coincide, or that doesn't reset, rather, when he actually goes for his evolution. So, yeah, it looks like FrozenWinter is going to have to throw the riposte onto the Garen anyway to take out the Sejuani. And the Make It Rain is actually a pretty big punish here. Really unfortunate for FrozenWinter that it went onto this Garen instead of this Badger Bear, but because of the warning shot, we do know going face also wouldn't have been great. So yeah, that's going to be a trade from the Garen. Fiora going to live at 1 HP, this Badger Bear going to live at 2 HP. Unless the Fury of the North comes out to protect the Black Market Merchant, I really don't see this card actually getting much value any time later on. Oh, going to save the Sejuani, even better. Gonna put her up to a 9-10. Yeah, Human Jelly all in on this Sejuani plan right now. We could see the Relentless Pursuit out of FrozenWinter once the mana's committed by Human Jelly. Although the second warning shot does mean that the Sejuani ability is back on the table. And the Bannerman whiffs, actually. This is not what you want to see out of FrozenWinter. I'm not sure what Ionia card is in the deck. I would assume it's Deny. That's typically the one that we see. And in this strange format where your opponent does get to bring a wide spread of 5 decks, it does mean that the Deny is probably a pretty good adaptation out of the Bannerman. We see, I actually love Human Jelly's face cam here. I'm so glad that we have this. He is an expressive player. I love this. So yeah, it's going to be the pass with the double warning shot in hand now. Yeah, FrozenWinter taken off of the Relentless Pursuit play, and it is the Deny off the top. And as we see in Human Jelly's hand, there's absolutely nothing that FrozenWinter can actually get the Deny off on. So we're going to see the Island Navigator potentially played pre-combat. Human Jelly doesn't have to worry about much. He knows that that Relentless Pursuit has been in FrozenWinter's hand for quite some time. He knows that a Deny was picked up off the top because the Allegiant Swift. See the Swiftwing Lancer come down. And while FrozenWinter does have access to play his entire hand now, it's really not going to work out for him. I think we are in limbo at this point. I can't think of any top decks that are going to get FrozenWinter out of this. There's almost nothing to stop Human Jelly from pushing through enough damage this turn that he doesn't have to use the warning shots if he doesn't want to. But with the life totals so low, this Sejuani is really going to be the deciding factor of this game. It looks like Human Jelly is just going to trade off his scouts. So, because Human Jelly has more attackers than FrozenWinter has blockers, if he puts the least enticing thing all the way to the left, and then warning shots after blockers are declared, and then the thing all the way to the left didn't get blocked, then the warning shot will evolve the Sejuani, and then the damage from the first attack will trigger the Sejuani ability and frostbite the entire board of FrozenWinter. The worst case is you have to use both warning shots. Okay, it looks like I would have liked to see Cythria all the way to the left. I think that's the one that's the least likely to get blocked. But I guess as long as your Sejuani isn't getting, or as long as Sejuani's all the way to the right, you don't really care about it. Or rather, at least the damage is coming in before the Sejuani. So yeah, gonna be these blocks lined up. Actually gonna let the Sejuani be the one to go unblocked. I actually like this a lot out of FrozenWinter. I think this is the smartest way to play it. This means that the board will not... There's no way that the board gets frostbitten mid-combat because the second instance of damage will come down last. Of course, double warning shot does get around this, but at 8 life, what can you really expect out of FrozenWinter? Yeah, the double warning shot fired off by Human Jelly does mean the board will get frostbitten, but a good play from FrozenWinter to actually get both warning shots out. Or sorry, only one warning shot was fired off. The animation was so quick. Yeah, there's the second one fired off now. And that is going to frostbite the board. And with the entire board of FrozenWinter absolutely decimated, only 6 life left. That's actually lethal thanks to the Sejuani upgrade and the double warning shot damage. So yeah, that's going to be Team King picking it up. I love this face cam from Human Jelly.